Infant and sunset industry argument for protectionism. Today I'm going to discuss this issue in this small video. Protectionism is a term used for the trade barriers which a country uses in order to discourage its imports. These trade barriers include tariffs and non-tariff barriers, and their purpose is to discourage imports physically and improving the balance of payment position of the country by doing that. A country which is facing a persistent current account deficit due to high level of imports would sometimes be forced to adopt protectionism, because due to high level of imports and low level of exports and a current account deficit, more money would be leaving the country as compared to coming in. As a result, aggregate demand would fall, which will negatively influence GDP, and unemployment rate may increase. So there are many others problems related to current account deficit, but for the time being it is not my topic. My topic is that when we use trade barriers to support infant industries and sunset industries, and why do we do so, that is my point of discussion. First of all, I'll talk about infant industry argument. Infant industries are those industries which are new in the field in a country, and since they are new in the field, their market share is very limited. Market share being limited, they are producing a very low level of output, due to which their per unit cost is high. We know that per unit cost falls when we produce something on a large scale, but since there is no demand for the local good, it is at its initial stage. That's why the output is low, per unit cost is high, and because of the per unit cost being high, the local firms, the local new industry is forced to sell its product at a higher price. And because of that higher price, it is unable to compete imports, and there is a chance that if it would not be able to compete imports, it will decline in the stage of its infancy. If government finds out, if government believes that this infant industry is a potential industry, and in the future when it will grow, it will make a major contribution in GDP, major contribution in employment, it would be able to substitute imports and would be able to export, then government will support this industry, this infant industry, by using trade barriers, which means by discouraging imports and providing it a room for growth and expansion. Right? So, infant industry argument simply is that industry is new, that's why market share is limited, per unit cost is high, price is high, they are unable to compete imports, but the government believes that this industry should be protected. That's why the government is using trade barriers in order to discourage imports and supporting them so that they can grow. The following diagram will make you understand my point more clear. I have shown an average cost curve there, and I have shown there that the per unit cost is higher because the infant industry is producing on a very low scale initially. I will discuss this diagram again after discussing the sunset industry argument. Sunset industries or senile industries are those industries which are very large industries, but they are suffering with the problem of diseconomies. Due to diseconomies, their per unit cost is rising rapidly, It means that the firm is so large now that managerial diseconomies and labor diseconomies are taking place, because of which per unit cost has risen enough. As a result, they are forced to charge a higher price, but when they are charging a higher price, import is working as a threat. Cheaper imports is working as a threat, because if cheaper imports would be allowed, this industry would not be able to compete, and obviously it will start to decline. Government knows that these industries are large industries. If they would decline, there would be a major negative influence on the GDP, and unemployment rate would rise considerably, because these are mega industries, these are large industries. Therefore, government will sometimes support them by imposing trade barriers, by using protectionism, by discouraging imports, so that cheaper imports are not allowed in the country, and these firms face no competition from outside and they must survive. Government is supporting them temporarily, usually, because they could manage themselves and reduce their per unit cost again. But sometimes it has been observed that government support results in prolonged inefficiency by these firms, because if the government support is there, these firms would not try to achieve productive efficiency. However, I'm not discussing the arguments against, but the simple thing is that sunset industry argument is this, that these are very large industries which are suffering with diseconomies, and their per unit cost has risen so much that they are unable to compete with the cheaper imports, and if they are unable to compete, they would decline, and when they would decline, there would be a loss of GDP, there would be a loss of employment. That's why the government is supporting them. Look at the following diagram. You can see that initially per unit cost is higher because the infant industries are producing very small output. That's why per unit cost is high. But in the case of sunset industry, the per unit cost is high because they are producing at a very large scale. You can see that the output of the infant industry is very low, while output in the diagram of the sunset industry is very high. So the per unit cost is high in the case of sunset industries because they are producing at a very large scale and they are suffering with the diseconomies of scale. But in the case of infant industry, the per unit cost is high because they are producing on a very small scale. So the problem faced by the infant industry and sunset industry are the same. Their per unit costs are high. That's why they are unable to compete imports, and government has to support them. Right? I hope you understand my point. I hope the concept is clear to you. And if you like the video, if it is doing any help to you, please like it, subscribe my channel, and share the video. Thank you very much, and keep in touch for the upcoming videos on different topics. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.